Thank you. So we'll get started. No update on the quarterback situation. Keller was feeling much better yesterday. Has a few steps before he's completely back into practice. I believe Terrence Alexander is getting close to working back into practice health-wise. I believe those are the two major health-related questions.
Sean Barton?
Sean Barton will be out the remainder of the season.
He's out?
He's out.
For
yes.
the season?
Yes. Which I forgot to confirm with you guys the other day. When I first said that it was most likely that he was out, it was confirmed not too long after that. I just forgot to come back and tell you guys, but he will be out the rest of the season.
Coach, before we get into the Arizona State game and your team, I was wondering if you have any response to this conflict between President Trump and the protesting NFL players, many of whom were former Stanford players. As a prominent black figure in American sports, how do you feel about it? Do you have any thoughts about especially what President Trump said about those people, you know, SOBs and all that stuff, and how they should be fired and so on?
Well, what to me gets lost in, because first and foremost, for answer your question, first and foremost, I'm an American that loves this country. There's an unhealthy discourse right now, because to me what's fundamental is President Trump, not just as President Trump, but as citizen Trump. He's entitled to his opinion, but his opinion is very influential, of course, but at the same time, athletes, because they're athletes, doesn't mean they don't get to have an opinion, don't get to have an outlook as well. So I think opinions are valid. For some reason nowadays, we just want to yell at each other as opposed to saying, here's what I believe and you believe something different. Let's find our commonalities and our differences and respect each other. I think there's still continued to be a misconception of what is being protested, and I think it's gotten even muddier now, whereas what happened this past weekend was, yes, a response to President Trump. And the way that it's viewed is still interesting to me. There was a unification. You saw owners, you saw GMs, you saw personnel people, you saw players, which was kind of to say, hey, we're here to play football. This is what we do. But we also have something that we believe in. And some of those guys that knelt, some of those guys that lock arms, were not even locking arms about social injustice. They're saying, I'm playing with this guy. I'm standing next to him. He's on my team, and I respect his right to protest, not protest. But in 5 minutes, I also trust he's going to go pick up that blitz. You know, this guy that I'm standing next to, he's going to go block somebody. We may view something differently. He may sit, kneel, salute, not salute, put his hand over his heart or not. I respect his right to do any of that. And at the same time, this protest is not infringing on their abilities to do their job. So for me, I think there should be respect to people, for people that have different viewpoints and different outlooks. The question needs to continually be asked and responded to respectfully and responded to with a sense of responsibility of, here's why I'm kneeling. Now, once again, for me personally, I wouldn't, but I understand why some would. I wouldn't kneel. That's just not me. But I love some of those who are. Some of those guys are like family to me, and their points are very, very valid. And what they're trying to accomplish is noble. You look at the things that Michael Thomas is doing off the field. It's unbelievable. The guy was voted the captain for a reason. It's what he's doing in the community. He's partnering with the police stations, etc. He's doing a lot outside of football, and playing well in football too. So last I heard, people get relieved of their duties if they're not doing their jobs. So that's as much as I'm going to say on it. I need to, and I truly believe that the president is entitled to his opinion. And if he wants to vocalize it or put it on Twitter, I don't have a problem with it, because he's an American also. Other people have other opinions, which is great. And at some point, we all do our jobs and try to do them to the best of our abilities.
David, just as a small follow-up to that, the narrative is you're an athlete. You're supposed to perform in front of me, like you alluded to. Athletes have opinions. As a coach, as a former athlete, how much does that bother you that there's that narrative that you guys shouldn't have an opinion?
Well, at heart, I'm a football coach, but also a social psychologist. Most people know that about me. And there's one of the principles that I try to explain and express to our coaches, our players, et cetera, which is there are people that are fans, there are people that are not fans, there are people that are in the media that don't view us as people. We're entertainment. I get that. I understand that. In my job, I accept that. I'm fine with that. That's what I signed up for. I'm not going to be influenced by it. But there's that recognition of, and this is I don't want to get completely off topic, but, when 9/11 hit, it was horrific. It was life-changing for everybody in our country at the time. The initial response from a lot of people was, the NFL should play. Go out there and play, because we need you to go play for us. There are so many people that were hurting that hadn't heard from their families. But the initial narrative, now it changed. It changed very quickly. But the initial narrative, because I remember sitting there, I was with the Oakland Raiders saying, I've got family, wife's got family. I've got players that are from New York that we don't know if they're going to come in today. But we should go out there and play so everybody else feels good. So there's that gladiator aspect of our sport in particular that says, you're there to entertain us. We don't care what your opinion is. We don't care what your politics are. Doggone it, go out there and run into each other so that I can have a good day. And you can entertain me for these 3 hours, and then I go back to my world. I'm not complaining about it. That's just reality. So I recognize that, and that's not going to change. But at the same time, that's on someone else. That's not on us. So I continue to express to my players, which is have an opinion. Be intelligent about it. If you have a question, research it. Find answers. And if you want to say something, great, then say something. Speak from a point of intelligence. Speak from a point of knowledge. Say something that you can defend with reason and as much factual evidence as you have. And then continue on with life. Continue on with life. We have a lot of responsibilities. And at the same time, you feel strongly about something, great. As an American, you are open to voice your opinion. And as long as you handle your responsibilities, you're going to class, you're doing your schoolwork, you're going to football, working hard, trying to get better, great. You can have an opinion and to certainly be accountable to it, absolutely. But, it shouldn't interfere with your rights as an American citizen.
Based on that, Coach,
one more.
have you gotten a sense that this is going to trickle down to the collegiate level? Have any of your players brought anything up saying, I want to do something? Has that come up?
It hasn't necessarily, but there have been a lot of discussions. And that's what I've said too, is just we're so polarized right now. In particular for this age, this is a great opportunity for them to learn about the world before they're in it. Because they're not necessarily in it. They're in college. We've got a little glass bubble here, which is outstanding. But this is the time to discuss and debate and to have an opinion and then listen to somebody else's opinion and then reform your opinion. So to have this is what I believe and everybody else is wrong, in particular for this age of people, I think that's the wrong approach to take. So I encourage dialogue. I encourage listening. I encourage expressing. And I also encourage, hey, let's be better on third down. I don't want to, say that you're an athlete. We just do athlete things. No, absolutely. You want to listen and you want to grow and that's fine. But they're also going to be good at football. So I just want to make sure this doesn't become a full-time job of these guys. But I also don't want to close the doors on the world that's outside of them, because at some point we're going to thrust them into that world. So I would love them to be socially conscious about what's going on.
Coach, I just want to make sure I get this straight. You say that President Trump has every right, like any other American, to freedom of speech, and yet he's ripping the NFL players for a freedom of speech during the national anthem. Do you think his remarks were ill-advised, intemperate,
That doesn't
over the
matter
top,
to me.
or what?
That doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I'm a football coach. I've been called every name under the sun. I've learned not to sway by other people's opinions, no matter what they are. But I also recognize they're entitled to it. You know, the same person that called me a bum 2 weeks ago loves me this week. And that's the nature of our business. So whether it's about how we play or who we play or what we do or what we say or whether we stand, kneel, etc., there are going to be opinions, and that's fine. People are entitled to their opinions, but I'm not going to change what I do because of those. I'll listen and grow like I want our players to, but at the same time, we have our agendas, we have things that we're trying to accomplish, and everybody's entitled to their opinion.
David, with Keller's injury this week, do you know who's going to start at quarterback for you?
No.
No? All right, KJ, as you know, both of us know, a lot of times the third guy doesn't get in the game, doesn't get a lot of reps in practice. You had to be impressed with the way he played and with when he came in that game.
Well, from the very beginning, I never said who was 2 or who was 3.
Right.
I think we left that vague for a reason in particular. Ryan Burns has played a role kind of in the last few games anyway, which we had talked about before the season ever started. So if Keller doesn't play, some combination of those 2 guys. If Keller does play, there may be some combination of those 3 guys. We'll see how it goes.
But KJ's performance, though?
It was impressive. It was impressive. He'll be the first to say it wasn't perfect. You know, first few drives, he wasn't completely on, and we corrected him on a couple of things. But the bottom line is, kid's got moxie. He's got a little fire to him. He can throw the football extremely well. That still, I don't want to gloss over the fact that we just started the season where Keller was undefeated as a starter and led us to some pretty important victories at the end of last year, and as a senior and as a captain. So I don't want to gloss over that. But once again, growing up in this industry, everybody's favorite guy on the team is the second quarterback, and all that happens all the time. So, but once again, that doesn't affect our process and what we do.
When you say moxie, it seemed like the players really just rallied around him. Some guys just bring that out at you, right?
And honestly, I think the same thing happens with Keller. I mean, there's a reason why Keller was voted as a captain, and it wasn't by a few votes. It was a lot of votes. Offense and defense, guys were voting for him because the way he carries himself, and the way that he directs the offense, the way that he pushes himself and works hard off the field and on the field. So, yeah, I think they kind of have different personalities, but at the same time, I think both have been effective.
David,
Coach, when do you anticipate a decision being made about whether Keller can play this week?
When?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, is it going to come late in the week, or?
With dealing with any injury, we have to go through a process of seeing how it goes.
Do you have a policy that a player cannot lose a starting job because of an injury?
To a certain degree, yeah.
Can you amplify on that a little bit? I mean, has that been your policy all along? I don't remember a good situation in the past to draw as an example, but I was just wondering if maybe you could.
What I said just about a minute ago, I still believe 100%, which is Keller Christ has played very well. He did not play as well against San Diego State, but he played well against USC. He's played well all last year when he was inserted as a starter, and I'm not going to take that lightly because KJ went out there and threw a couple of great passes and directed the team, which was great, which we expect him to do. So once again, I'm not going to overreact. We're going to let the injury recovery play out how it plays out, and see where it goes from there.
What was the biggest takeaway on offense, having watched the film?
Bryce Love. It's a phenom, you know, and there's a lack of surprise on our football team because we've been watching it. This is the same guy that was the player of the game his first game as a freshman, against Central Florida. Took a screen pass 93 yards and was accelerating still at about 80 yards. So we've seen it over and over again. Reverse, I believe it was against Cal a year ago. I mean, he's got so much speed and so much explosion. We all knew this was going to happen. How many yards and what people say, you never know. But we also knew he was a running back. We also knew he was going to get the tough yards. When you watch his film, as we always do, for me personally, I always go back at the end of the year and I watch, the touch tape, like every time a guy touches the ball. I always watch that every year for the guys coming back to say, okay, here's what they did well, here's what they didn't do well, oh, here's what he's good at. And the thing that you watched, that I saw from Bryce his freshman year, was that this guy's strong. It's not just he runs around people, he breaks that first tackle so often. And then sophomore year, I was like, okay, has he gotten faster? Holy mackerel, this guy's faster and stronger. And not all of his big plays happen on the edge. He goes to the Notre Dame game, and his two biggest runs were between the tackles. One was a zone run, one was a gap scheme run. We got inside the guy, then bounced back out. This guy's a dynamic running back that all he needed was carries. And I'm not on social media. I was alerted that I was beaten up a couple weeks ago, which I didn't, wasn't surprised by, but that Bryce didn't have enough carries. Well, that's okay. We had 40 plays, 42 plays, whatever it was. We had 20, 25, 26, 27 less plays than we typically have in a game where we end up being behind and we're trying to catch up. So that's the thing with him is we know we want him to have opportunities, both run and pass, and he's going to continue to have those.
David, in talking to him after the game, he was talking about how he and Christian always thought a lot alike in terms of what they did on the field, what they saw, things they saw like that. Not getting you to compare them as running backs, but do you see any similarities between the two on the field? Are there major differences that you see between them?
I think the similarities are the workman-like approach. He just comes to work and give him the accolades and pat him on the back and talk about the records. And he says, okay, thank you very much, because he's a very nice young man. He's a very conscientious kid. And he goes back to work. And that was exemplified unbelievably by Christian. Everyone in the world telling him how great he is, and he walks back across the field, and he's still finishing every run 20 yards. And he's still pushing each other.
How much do you think that helped Bryce, seeing the way Christian handled everything?
I think immensely. It's one thing for your parents to tell you how to do something. It's one thing for your coaches to tell you how to do things. It's another thing for it to be exemplified in front of you every single day when the cameras are there, when the cameras aren't. And Bryce came in the right mindset. His family environment is phenomenal. His parents did a great job bringing him up in this world, and he works extremely hard. He's very unselfish. He pushes himself and pushes the guys around him. But it's still great to see, okay, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when a guy goes to work every single day, is very gracious and shakes a whole bunch of hands and takes the awards and then puts them on the shelf and then goes back to work. So I think that was a big help. And you're seeing Bryce follow that same motto.
Bryce,
Did you see progress in the offensive line from San Diego State to UCLA last week?
That's the San Diego State game is a really, really difficult one, and it's not because we lost to San Diego State, right? I don't want to diminish that. It was the fact that there were some real big positives in that game. We showed a lot of grit and a lot of fight offensively when it wasn't going right early. We put some drives together at the end of the game to go get 3 points and go get a touchdown and take the lead in the fourth quarter. We made some huge strides defensively. We didn't let them have a drive the entire game until that last drive. We did a great job with the defense was put in a tough situation with a turnover, but for the most part, they had surrendered 6 points defensively, and that should be a winning performance. The circumstances of events, which were our fault, led us to a loss. So that's the hard part for me. And going back to the offensive line, gosh, there were moments where they played extremely well. I mean, it was a gritty. They have a very difficult defense. They blitz a lot. They move. They pinch. They twist. They're all over the place. They're very well coached. They play really hard. And we gave our back a couple of creases, and he hit them and gave us the lead. So I think we grew a little bit since San Diego State. But I don't think San Diego State was a bad performance by the offensive line. I think it was better than the performance against USC. So I think we've made progress every single week.
Talking about making progress, can you talk about finding that consistency in the defensive backs? They went up against one of the top picks probably in the NFL draft coming up.
Potentially, too.
Potentially two this season, you're right. A couple wide open touchdowns against UCLA, a couple of things that looked either like miscommunication or anything like that. But he also went up against a guy who threw it 60 times. The good and bad you took away from what you watched.
So the biggest and the biggest misnomer in the statistical world is passing yardage. It's the biggest misnomer, right? They threw it 60 times, so they're going to get a lot of yards. We stopped them twice in the red zone. One field goal got blocked, another field goal got kicked. Still tipped, but made. So there were 3 throws that were big-time NFL quarterback throws. The one that didn't score, that was laced between 2 defenders. I mean, the coverage couldn't be that much better, and that ball was placed perfectly. They have a very good tight end. He was able to shake open a couple times, and given enough opportunities, good players are gonna win. We also were able to intercept the ball a couple times. We're able to take the ball away a couple times. We're able to get pressure on the quarterback a couple times, which always helps coverage. But surrendering a whole bunch of passing yards and winning the game by multiple scores, I'll take that every single time, because you're getting an offense into predictable passing situations, and you're able to play the way that you want to. Now, at the same time, losing Elijah Holder was difficult. But Alameda Murphy came in and played well. We played a few different guys back there because we kind of have to. When you have to defend 60 passes, you have to keep guys fresh. That's talking about linebackers, defensive linemen, and secondary. So I think our secondary is playing very well. The stats won't tell you that. But we've played 2 of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and there are more to come. I don't worry about the stats. Guys will make minor mistakes here or there, and as long as we're making plays and as defense, we talk about it. Hey, the next play is the most important play. Give up a big play, great. Let's get a stop in the red zone, and we were able to do that a couple times.
Coach Bryce had, 30 carries in this game. We haven't seen him thrown to a lot. I think he's only been targeted like 4 times this year, caught a couple. Do you have plans to get him more involved in the passing game, screens or whatever? So
here's the difficult part is being an old receiver. I understand this maybe a little bit better than some others. Like pass receiving is still a combination of so many different things. Whereas it's not like he's been out. He's been in the game. He's been involved in some of the pass concepts. The coverage hasn't dictated that he gets the ball a couple times. Now, we have made it a concerted effort to also use him as a decoy, which is what you do with your lead back, which we did with Christian a couple times. So Bryce got the ball a couple times. You saw that we did that this past week with Cam Scarlett. Threw him a couple screens. So we'll continue to mix him in. But, yeah, Bryce will always be a big part of what we do. And at the same time, we also want to be conscious of, hey, there are times we need to give him a break. And we'll do that as well.
Is there a process in which you can appeal the Elijah Holder suspension for the first half against Arizona State?
I don't know that there's an appeal. I don't know that I would even follow it necessarily. My dialogue with the Pac-12 office and David Coleman has been very good. There's no mechanism right now to say that that's not an ejectable play. What we've talked about, which I believe we're going to go down the road, which is all these rules changes over the years. I think they're all kind of up for debate at the end of every year, and I think our our commissioner's office, our head of officials, David Coleman, does a great job of reevaluating at the end of every year. I think we've had good conversations with Rogers Redding, the national head of referees and officials. Where I believe we need to go, where I hope we go, is we get to that point to say we have to draw a line between what is ejectable and what's not ejectable, even if both are offenses, and being more specific on those. So that's my hope, because he can never judge intent necessarily, but in both Elijah's case and in the case of the UCLA player as well, is we're teaching these guys to lower their targets and to go lower and not go high on someone. So when forcible contact is made, head-to-head contact, I think we need to be able to evaluate and say, we can't judge intent, but if one person is striking another person high, that's just going to be ejectable. When one person's going low and the offensive player lowers his head, which we all know, we've known for years that's going to be the toughest one to officiate, is to say, okay, let's throw the flag. Because we have to throw the flag, so we have to make this game as safe as possible. But let's not eject the guy for trying to do what we've talked about, which is go lower, lower your target, hopefully keep your head up, use your shoulders, wrap up, and then the offensive player ducks his head right at the point of contact, and there's contact. Understandable. The onus is on the defensive player. Great. Throw the flag, take the penalty, but don't eject the guy because it's obvious that he's not trying to hit the guy in the head. He's actually going lower. So that's I believe and I hope where we're headed sometime in the near future.
What about the hit on Keller? I've seen that probably 10 times, and Pickett got him with his helmet on Keller's face mask. I mean, I don't know how much clearer that had to be. What was your take on that play? Those
are all tough calls. Someone said this to me the other day, which is interesting. I think I was talking to Dwayne Aquina, and it's difficult. And in my position, I don't mind saying this. It's difficult to officiate. You know, I think we kind of have to have their backs a little bit because we want the game as safe as possible. We also want it fun and exciting. But there's also a reason why all the helmets have nicks and scratches on them. The helmets are going to touch each other. The helmets are going to hit each other. Is there forcible contact? Is there, are they spinning, twisting? Is it incidental? Does it just happen? Those are all things that are sometimes judged in a split second, and then even on replay, it's hard to get a good bead on it. So I give the officials a little bit of a break to a certain degree because it is a very difficult thing to officiate, and I think the rules will be continually upgraded.
David, there's a secondary theme to your game Saturday with awareness being made for victims of sexual assault, and I know you're wearing some ribbons on the helmets, and I think Brenda Tracy may be coming to the game as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think it's a great opportunity, and very grateful to Todd Graham and Arizona State for being willing participants. And kind of what I said earlier, it's okay to be more than football players. It's okay to be more than a football coach. It doesn't mean that we'll take anything lightly on the football field. Both teams are going to come in and try to win, do everything they can to win. But at the same time, if we can continue to raise awareness, in particular in this age of people, not just the players on the field, but the people that are coming into the stadium, and talk about setting the expectation for your relationships, setting the expectation for how you are going to interact with other human beings. Gosh, why wouldn't we take advantage of that? So, very grateful to Brenda Tracy and all the work that she's done, and this momentum that she has created that thankfully we're going to take a part in. Callie Seidman-Dale has been a big part of that this entire process, and Brenda said something a while ago, which is just continues to bounce around in my head, is all the work that she does. If just every year she saves 2 or 3 people from becoming victims. I mean, after 5, 6, 7 years, I mean, how many people is that? It's changing our country, a couple people at a time, to keep people from something horrific happening to them. Especially if the least thing we can do is educate young people and get them to be responsible for their relationships, It's the least that we can do, and it's part of our responsibility, I believe, working at any university.
After 4 games, is it safe to assume that the freshmen who have not played yet will be redshirted, barring an emergency?
That's safe to say, yes.
Arizona State was kind of given up for dead, and then they come out and shock Oregon, and, I mean, that's why you don't take anybody lightly, right?
Oh, absolutely. The rankings can be whatever they are. There are no upsets in our conference. There's no such thing as an upset. This conference is ridiculous. You've got an Arizona State team that people were leaving for dead, and I watched the film. You see speed, you see athleticism, you see physical nature, you see a playmaker at quarterback, you see guys that can get after the passer, you see blitz packages, you see running, throwing, you see special teams with guys with speed and athleticism. So, yeah, every week in our conference is going to be a little crazy. So it's going to shake out however it's going to shake out, but every single game is extremely important, and every single game is going to be difficult to win.
Any thoughts about making Richard Magnitsky a gunner?
I may have a different answer than Richard on that one, but that and give Richard a lot of credit too. Those guys work really hard. Nobody sees it because nobody wants to see it. They're always on another field doing all kinds of things. But Coach Alomar has those guys doing a lot of things for protection, a lot of things for snapping, but a lot of things for coverage and tackling. And those guys they'll go to the crash pad and they'll tackle those dummies and land on those steals. So give them credit for for working extremely hard and then getting in that position and making a huge play.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Coach.